I never would have guessed that simply opening my home for a short stay could completely shift so many things inside me. Yet that is exactly what unfolded when my teenage nephew, Ethan, came to spend several days with me. At 52 years old, I had assumed I'd already mapped out most of life's patterns. My house stayed quiet. My days moved along a steady, predictable rhythm. I had built a routine that felt comfortable and familiar, and for the most part I thought I was content with that. But sometimes, late at night, I caught myself wondering if my version of contentment had also made me a little too comfortable, a little too settled, a little too shielded from surprises or change. Ethan's visit, something that appeared so ordinary on the surface, ended up becoming a wake-up call. It showed me in vivid color that family connections can break through even the thickest shells of routine, shaking us awake in ways we can't foresee. It began on a Friday evening. My younger sister Jennifer called unexpectedly. Her voice on the other end sounded rushed, almost trembling with exhaustion. Jennifer had always been the strong one, the one who juggled 1,000 responsibilities without complaint. But that night she sounded like someone at the edge of burnout. She explained she'd been scheduled for an intense string of night shifts at the hospital where she worked as a nurse, and her regular babysitter had fallen through at the last minute. Jennifer had been raising her 14-year-old son Ethan almost entirely by herself for years. As a single mom, she carried the weight of bills, homework, grocery shopping, and every school meeting. She worked long shifts, often taking on extra ones to cover expenses, and she still tried to be emotionally present for her boy. I admired her grit and dedication deeply, yet I'd also worried about how thin she was stretching herself. That evening she asked, a little hesitantly, if Ethan could stay with me for a week. Before she could even finish, I said yes. Of course, I told her. You don't have to ask. Bring him over tomorrow and we'll figure it out. Although Ethan wasn't a stranger, we'd never really been close. We saw each other at Christmas dinners, birthdays, and the occasional barbecue, and he was always polite but distant, the kind of teenager who preferred the glow of a phone screen or video game over small talk with adults. I wasn't sure how he'd feel about a full week in my quiet suburban home, but I decided right then to make it as comfortable and enjoyable as possible. After all, I'd never had children of my own, and in a small way, I looked at Ethan's visit as a chance to experience a slice of parenthood I'd never had. The next day, Jennifer pulled into my driveway, clearly in a rush to get to work. Ethan stepped out of the car with his backpack hanging off one shoulder, his dark hair falling across his forehead. He gave me a quick, almost embarrassed hug, mumbling that his mom told him to be good. Jennifer thanked me over and over before heading off, her relief obvious. Suddenly, it was just the two of us standing in the driveway, unsure what to do next. Inside, I showed Ethan the guest room I'd prepared. I'd laid fresh sheets on the bed, left a stack of books and snacks on the nightstand, even added a small lamp with a warm glow. He gave a quick nod, muttered "cool," then flopped onto the bed and pulled out his phone. For a few minutes, I worried that the entire week would slip by in awkward silence, but as it turned out, I couldn't have been more wrong. The first shift happened at dinner. I had cooked one of my comfort food favorites, a homemade chicken pot pie with buttery golden crust and creamy filling, though I wasn't sure a teenager would find it appealing. But Ethan devoured 2 helpings before I'd even finished my first. When I asked if he wanted more, he grinned shyly and said, "You're a better cook than Mom." We both laughed, and just like that, a thin crack appeared in the ice. In the days that followed, those cracks widened into something more like a door opening. I learned more about Ethan in that week than I had in the previous several years combined. Beneath his quiet exterior, he had a dry, sharp sense of humor that often caught me off guard. He talked about his love for basketball, about his dream of making the high school team, and about how sometimes school felt overwhelming with so many assignments and so little time with his mom. I made a point to listen, really listen, without judging or rushing him, and I could see how much it mattered to him just to be heard. One sunny afternoon, I suggested we go shoot hoops at the park down the street. His eyes lit up in a way I hadn't seen before. We walked there together, basketball under his arm, and spent nearly an hour passing the ball back and forth, him showing off his moves and me laughing at my clumsy attempts to copy him. When a couple of neighborhood kids joined, Ethan slipped effortlessly into a full-court game, leading, calling plays, and sinking shot after shot. Watching him in his element filled me with pride. I could see his confidence bloom right there on the cracked pavement of that little park. The wildest twist of the week, though, came one night when the power suddenly went out across the entire neighborhood. We'd planned a simple movie night, but halfway through the lights flickered and everything went dark. At first, Ethan groaned about losing Wi-Fi and not being able to finish the film. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of retreating to sulk, he followed me into the kitchen while I lit a few candles. In that soft glow, time slowed down. We started talking, first about small things, then deeper stories. I told him about his mom and me as kids, about the silly pranks we pulled, about the afternoons we spent riding bikes until dusk. He laughed so hard at some of the stories that tears ran down his cheeks. I could tell he was seeing his mother in a whole new way. Not just as the tired adult who came home from the hospital late at night, but as a mischievous girl who once snuck out of the house or climbed trees barefoot. That evening shifted something between us. He wasn't only my nephew anymore. He was becoming a friend. As the days passed, we built small routines. Morning walks with my dog. Evenings spent side by side in the kitchen chopping vegetables and stirring sauces. Afternoons of simple chores, watering plants, sorting the garage, folding laundry, tasks he surprisingly seemed to enjoy. The withdrawn, screen-absorbed teenager was fading, replaced by someone present and alive, someone leaning into each moment. By the end of the week, when Jennifer came to pick him up, Ethan surprised us both. He hugged me tightly, much tighter than that first awkward embrace, and said quietly, "Thanks for everything. This was the best week I've had in a long time." Jennifer's eyes went wide, her mouth forming a silent thank you toward me. When they drove away, the house felt impossibly quiet. I sat down, taking in the stillness, and realized how much that week had shifted my own perspective too. I had thought I was simply doing my sister a favor, offering a place to stay. But Ethan had given me a gift I hadn't known I was missing. A reminder of the joy that comes from connection, from listening, from letting someone else's presence rearrange your routine. It wasn't always neat. It wasn't predictable. It was sometimes messy, occasionally awkward, even a little wild. But woven through it all was a warmth I hadn't felt in years. That week reminded me that no matter how established our routines, no matter how set we think our lives are, there's always room to open the door, to let someone in, and to be changed for the better. And if you ask me today whether I'd do it again, my answer is simple: in a heartbeat.